One constant throughout the NFL for the last 10 plus years is the New York Jets being bad at football. They currently have the longest playoff drought out of any team in the Big Four US sports leagues. Another constant during these years has been the lack of any real competent franchise quarterback. Year after year after year, no matter who ends up under center, they just can't lead this franchise to anything positive. Last week, in the heat of another disastrous season, Tim Boyle was announced as the 16th quarterback to start a game for the Jets since the 2009 season. So in this video, we're going to look back at these 16 guys, how they did during their Jets tenure, and what they're up to today. Before I get into it, welcome to the War Room. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you're new, and let's get straight to it. We'll kick it off with the last Jets quarterback to lead the team to the playoffs, Mark Sanchez. 2009 was his rookie year with the team after getting picked 5th overall in the 2009 draft. He started 15 games that season, in which the Jets went 8-7 in those games, but the only reason why the Jets were winning in 2009 was because of their stacked defense, not Mark Sanchez. He threw 12 touchdowns to 20 interceptions with under 2,500 yards on the season, and his quarterback rating of 53 was bottom 5 in the league. The rest of his Jets tenure was mid at best, as he never threw for over 3,500 yards in any of his 4 seasons with the team. His touchdown to interception ratio during this time was 68-69. Sanchez ended up retiring from football in 2019. In July 2021, he joined Fox Sports as a game analyst, and that's pretty much what he's been doing ever since. As disappointing as Sanchez was for Jets fans, the saddest part is he is one of the franchise's better starting quarterbacks since 2009. I mentioned that he only started 15 games in his rookie season, and that's because in Week 14, the Jets headed to Tampa Bay to face the 1-11 Buccaneers. Sanchez was out for this game dealing with a right knee sprain, so the backup Kellen Clemens got the start. He was as much of a non-factor as a quarterback could possibly be in a football game, throwing for 111 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and completing half his passes. Nothing too special to dive deep into. The Jets won this game, somehow putting up 26 points, and it was Clemens' last start ever for this franchise. He actually managed to stay in the NFL until 2017, where he started 12 more games, and his teams went 4-8 in those games. He now lives in Idaho with his wife Nicole and 4 children. He is a partner/head of sports with a company called Elate, which incorporates the use of neuroscience to help people understand behavioral patterns or some nerdy shit like that. But yeah, Kellen Clemens is just a normal family man in Idaho. Number 3 is Greg McElroy, who was taken by New York in the 7th round of the 2011 draft. He started just 1 game in his entire NFL career, which came in Week 16 of the 2012 season against the San Diego Chargers. He threw for 185 yards and an interception as the Jets lost 27-17. He announced his retirement from the NFL in 2014. Surprisingly, McElroy has had more success as an analyst than he ever did as a player. 3 days after announcing his retirement from football, he was hired as a college football analyst for the SEC network starting in August 2014. In 2016, he began calling games for all conferences on ESPN, and fast forward to 2023, McElroy got a huge promotion as he now works with Sean McDonough and Molly McGrath on ESPN's Saturday night primetime coverage. At just 35 years old, McElroy has climbed the ranks as a respected media member in the football world. He had one of the most forgettable NFL careers of all time, but honestly, respect to him for finding some success doing what he loves. Number 4 is a much more well-known name, Gino Smith. Smith was drafted in the 2nd round in 2013, and there were high hopes that he could do what Mark Sanchez couldn't and be the reliable quarterback this franchise needed. A combination of Gino being young and inexperienced, plus having an awful roster around him with horrible coaching, it's no surprise he struggled early on in his career. In his first 2 seasons, he threw 25 touchdowns to 34 interceptions, and the team had a 12-18 record in games he started. He missed the entire 2015 season after getting punched in the face by one of his teammates because he owed them money. In 2016, in his very first game back, he tore his ACL, ending his Jets tenure. He bounced around the NFL after that, going from the Giants to the Chargers to the Seahawks. He worked hard enough to be on an NFL roster during a time period where it looked like his best days were behind him. That was until out of nowhere in 2022, he went off as the starting quarterback for Seattle, having a career-high completion percentage, yards, and touchdowns in a season. He led the Seahawks to the playoffs with a 9-8 record. He made the Pro Bowl, he was top 10 in MVP voting, and won Comeback Player of the Year. Gino is still the Seahawks quarterback in 2023, and while he's not as good as last season, he's still significantly better than he was when New York had him. But if we're being fair, there's literally no way the Jets, or anyone for that matter, could have predicted this career resurgence. The Jets were simply the wrong team for him at the wrong time. Next up, Michael Vick. Vick started just 3 games for the team in 2014 after signing a 1-year deal in the offseason. They went 1-2 in games with Vick under center, throwing 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He retired from football a year later. Mike Vick is considered to be one of the best players ever to not be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. While he was an incredible player, his 2-year prison sentence during the prime of his career for dogfighting will always be attached to his name, and Vick himself believes this is the only reason why he's not in the Hall of Fame, which is probably true. In 2017, he joined the Fox Sports team as an analyst for Fox NFL Kickoff, where he still works to this day. A Change.org petition was created shortly after he was hired, demanding Fox remove Vick from his position, and it got almost 90,000 supporters. While he's been actively trying to rebuild his reputation, many people to this day still do not forgive or forget what he did all those years ago. Quarterback number 6 is Ryan Fitzpatrick. Remember when I said Gino Smith got punched in the face by his teammate and missed the entire 2015 season? Well, the veteran quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick was the man who replaced him that year. He started all 16 games and literally had one of the best seasons ever for a Jets quarterback, throwing for over 3,900 yards, and his 31 passing touchdowns were a franchise record. This was the closest the organization came to returning to the playoffs. Heading into Week 17, they had a 10-5 record and just needed to beat the 7-8 Bills to clinch a spot. But the Jets couldn't get it done and became the rare 10-6 team to miss the playoffs. After a lengthy offseason holdout, they brought back Fitzpatrick on a 1-year deal, and he wasn't even close to the same player. He threw 12 touchdowns to 17 interceptions in the 11 games he started, and the team went 3-8 in those games. He played for 3 more teams before retiring in 2022. Since then, he's worked with guys like Tony Gonzalez and Richard Sherman on Amazon Prime's Thursday Night Football panel, as he enjoys retirement following a 17-year football career. Following Fitzpatrick is Bryce Petty, who was selected in the 4th round by New York in the 2015 draft. He started 4 games during Fitzpatrick's awful 2016 season. They went 1-3 in those games, while Petty threw 3 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. In his sophomore year, also his last season in the NFL, he started 3 more games, throwing 1 more touchdown and 3 more interceptions. He retired with a 1-6 career record. Today, at age 32, he is the director of a company called Capital Markets, which is a real estate agency in Texas. Safe to say, this definitely isn't how the Jets front office pictured it would play out when he was drafted 8 years ago. Quarterback number 8 is Josh McCown. At 38 years old, McCown signed a 1-year deal with New York before the 2017 season. That year, he started 13 games and played pretty decent, throwing 18 touchdowns to 9 interceptions with just under 3,000 passing yards. But the team's record was 5-8 in games he started. He re-signed on a 1-year deal following the season, got 3 more starts in 2018, and lost all 3 games. He called it quits 1 year later, ending a 16-year NFL career. And in February of 2023, he was named the quarterback coach of the Carolina Panthers, where he's now responsible for mentoring Bryce Young. Number 9 is Sam Darnold. He was selected 3rd overall by New York in the 2018 draft, in a class that included Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. But Darnold didn't find nearly as much success as these guys. In his 3-year Jets tenure, his record was 13-25. His TD to interception ratio was 45-39. And while I truly believe he would have been a lot better with some offensive weapons and a different coach besides Adam Gase, he still didn't show many signs of being the team's future. In 2021 and 2022, he was the quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, where again, he didn't do anything really worth noting. Today, he's the backup quarterback for Brock Purdy in San Francisco. So who knows, maybe he'll stay in the league, pull a Gino Smith, and win Comeback Player of the Year 5 years from now. In the middle of Darnold's 2019 season, he dealt with the infamous case of mono, and backup Trevor Siemian was going to be the starter until he came back. But in the middle of the second quarter, in his first ever start with the team, he suffered a gruesome ankle injury which ended his season. So in his career as a Jets starter, he's thrown for a grand total of 3 yards. He's been a career backup since then, and everything came full circle, because 1 month ago, the Jets decided to bring him back, where he is currently the second stringer behind Tim Boyle. So Darnold missed 3 weeks with mono, Siemian started just 1 game in that span, so doing the math, that means someone else had to start the other 2. Well, that someone else was Luke Falk. These were the only 2 games he played in his NFL career, and the Jets lost both. He didn't throw a single touchdown pass and was released when Darnold came back. In February 2021, he signed with the Saskatchewan Roughriders in the Canadian Football League. In July 2021, he was placed on the suspended list, and later that month, he was released from the team. This year, he landed his first NCAA job as he currently works as the quarterback coach for Wingate University, a D2 school in North Carolina. Quarterback number 12, Mr. Elite himself, Joe Flacco. He signed with the Jets in 2020 to be Sam Darnold's backup, and he was pretty much the team's second stringer for all 3 years as a Jet, though he did get some starts once in a while. His record in games started over those 3 years was 1-8, but he actually didn't play that bad himself, throwing 14 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Flacco hasn't appeared in a game since last year, and since he's pushing 40, many people figured he would just retire. However, last week, the Browns signed him to their practice squad since Deshaun Watson is out for the season. He said himself 2 days ago he believes he can still play, and with Cleveland fighting for a playoff spot with Dorian Thompson-Robinson currently as the team's starting QB, something tells me we haven't seen the last of Joe Flacco in the NFL. Number 13, good old Zach Wilson. He was taken second overall in the 2021 draft, and Jets fans prayed he was finally the savior they needed. But statistically, in his first 3 seasons, he's been one of the worst quarterbacks of all time, throwing 21 touchdowns to 25 interceptions with an 11-20 record. Had Zach Wilson not been historically trashed these last 2 seasons, the Jets probably would have made the playoffs both years, since their defense is so good. Last week, it was announced he would be moved from the starting position to the 3rd stringer, and his days in a Jets uniform seem to be numbered. He was also benched last season for number 14 on the list, Mike White. White was drafted in the 5th round by the Cowboys in 2018. After Sam Darnold's mono case in 2019, White was signed to the Jets practice squad and slowly climbed the ranks. Fast forward to 2022, and the Jets were desperate at the quarterback position. White started 4 games that season, and the Jets went 1-3 in those games, as he threw 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Following that season, he signed a deal to become the backup quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, where he is currently on their roster today. He's only thrown 3 passes this season, one of which was a touchdown and 1 an interception. White is currently 28 years old, and it seems like he'll be a solidified backup in this league for years to come. Moving to quarterback number 15, Aaron Rodgers. Last offseason, news was starting to spread that the future Hall of Famer wanted out of Green Bay so he could play for the Jets. After months of rumors, the 2 teams finally agreed on a trade. Rodgers is the number 1 reason why so many Jets fans had high hopes for the team this season. At 39 years old, he's still one of the most talented quarterbacks the franchise has ever had. And this wouldn't be a video about the Jets without some horribly timed bad luck. Because on the very first drive of this season, Rodgers tore his Achilles and he hasn't played in a game since. He's been rehabbing for the last few months, and some speculate he actually might be able to come back at the end of this season. But given the fact his team is currently 4-7, it looks like the Jets' playoff drought will have to wait at least another year before it's over. At best, Rodgers can come back healthy next season in what will very likely be the last season of his career. And finally, quarterback number 16, Tim Boyle. Last year, Mike White replaced the bench Zach Wilson. This year, it was Boyle. A few days ago versus the Dolphins, he got the start, throwing for 212 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions in the Jets' blowout loss. Coach Robert Saleh announced that Boyle will also be starting next week. But again, there's no salvaging this Jets season, and they're better off looking forward to next year. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what happened to the 16 Jets quarterbacks to start a game since 2009. Just to recap, here are all 16 guys and what they're doing today, in the order of how many career starts they had with the Jets. From bad draft picks to washed up free agent signings to straight up bad luck, fans have been waiting for someone to save this franchise. But unfortunately for Gang Green, it appears the quarterback carousel is moving faster than ever. What year will the Jets return to the playoffs? Let me know in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'm going to be making NFL content like this until the end of the season, so do not miss out. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.